The member from also speak about the lands in Beaufort. But it seems to forget, Madam Speaker, just before elections of 2016, the cabinet, under the leadership of Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, member for Beaufort South, wrote a letter to one Robert Innsworth, offering him 1,000 acres of land in Beaufort to build a lab. The record said that we have spoken about it here. So do not come here and make it believe that we are doing something wrong. You sat in cabinets and you agreed. You agreed for your prime minister to make a commitment to an investor. Yes, the member from Labrie South. You agreed from Labrie. You agreed that your prime minister to make a commitment to offer investor 1,000 acres of land in Beaufort to build a lab. You don't like labs, you know. You don't like labs, you know. But you want to come here and make a big issue about DSH. How about DSH? You know? Madam Speaker, you speak about the marketing board and the Fish Marketing Corporation. Madam Speaker, I just want to read from a presentation I was made in this honorable house. Mr. Speaker, and I'm quoting him, Madam Speaker, so. And I quote, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this government recognizes that all of its efforts at improving the infrastructure base for agricultural diversification could prove futile if inadequate attention is paid to the organization arrangement for agricultural marketing. The individual went on to say, Madam Speaker, the individual, and I'll say who it is just now, went on to say, a policy decision have been taken that optimize the reorganization of the St. Lucia Marketing Board, and at this juncture, we shall fully commercialize it, leading to ultimate privatization. That was said in this honorable house. And Madam Speaker, that was said in 1997. And remember the long speech, the 100-page speech that was done by the then Prime Minister? That was what Dr. Kenny Anthony said in 1997. 1997. So nothing was done. Nothing was done, Madam Speaker, up to the time we came. And that is why we have what it takes to do the changes that are necessary to provide reliable markets and for our farmers to be paid on a timely basis. That is what we are doing. That is what we are doing, Madam Speaker. It's not talk and make promises and promises and promises. We are coming here, we are saying what we are doing, and we are coming back to report what we have accomplished. 1997. But I realized, Madam Speaker, he was not there at the time. So I forgive him. I forgive him, Madam Speaker, because you're still at school. But of course, Madam Speaker, because these are things that have been said in this honorable house, Madam Speaker. So do your research, because you're a teacher, and I know you're a researcher. Do your research. Madam Speaker, I support this motion because here it is, we come into government and we got a project, a long outstanding project, Madam Speaker, Denry North Water Supply. And I want to at least compliment the Member of Parliament for Denry North for continuing with an initiative that started long before his time. And at the appropriate time, I'll speak about it. But you know what happened, Madam Speaker? The phase 2 of the project, there was no resources in the budget to do phase 2 of the project, which is a critical component of the project, Madam Speaker, the distribution of water to people's home. Critical. So you can do phase one, you can put the tank, you can put the treatment plant. But if you do not distribute the water to people home, it makes no sense. So what we have to do, Madam Speaker, is to get the resources so that we can at least do a phase two. And that is why we have approached the Caribbean Development Bank. And because of the fact that the Caribbean Development Bank has not approved the loan, Madam Speaker, I have to approach my Prime Minister to see if we can get an advance to pay the contractor so at least he can start phase two. So I want to say to you, I'm supporting this motion. You should know that. Because whilst you're there taking pictures and everything by the tank, you have not finished the work. We are going to finish it. We are going to finish what you started. We are going to finish it. Madam Speaker, I heard my Shadow Minister for Health speak about bananas and 200%. I want to tell him here today, Madam Speaker, that production for 2017, despite the fact, and that's a fact, despite the fact we had a bad 2017. You know why we had a bad 2017? Because the first quarter of 2017, we never exported bananas. And you know why? We had Tropical Storm Matthew. The first quarter of 2017, we never exported bananas. And despite that situation, we have been able to sell more bananas to the UK. That's better than any one of your best years as Minister of Agriculture. Better. The figures are there to show you. I'm not even comparing 2016, because 2016 we had Tropical Storm Matthew. 2017 was better than any one of your best years as Minister of Agriculture. Better. So do the maths. Do the maths. So, Madam Speaker, so when you come into this honorable house, come to this honorable house, let us speak the facts, And I want to say, Madam Speaker, first of all, I think I should apologize to the member for Vieux-Fort North. I'm going to apologize to him. I did it at the appropriate time. I'm going to do it again because he was not there, but I'm sure he got the message. Because we came in and we found a situation, Madam Speaker, where with the help of the government of Taiwan, he, as Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Fisheries, started a project in Pointe and in Servants Bay. Very good. But you know what happened, Madam Speaker? We couldn't finish it. You know why, Madam Speaker? The money was not there. The money was returned to Taiwan because of the slow pace at which, under his watch, that project was implemented. What did I do? I re-engaged the government of Taiwan. I told them the project needs to finish. They agreed. We had to go back and do estimates and write to the government of Taiwan officially to get the resources to finish the project. We didn't victimize. We kept the same contractors. We talk about we not continue the projects. We kept the same contractors, right? And we got the resources. But I want to apologize that he was not invited officially, and I think it's unfair because I believe in structures. I believe if you go to somebody's constituency as a parliamentary representative, you should invite them to a function. And I want to apologize to him. But despite the fact that, Madam Speaker, he could not come there and say that we did not continue the project. We couldn't continue the project because there was no resources to continue the project. And he should be complimenting this Minister of Agriculture for continuing a project in his constituency where there's no resources to be finished. So, Madam Speaker, we shall finish this project, and the member for Vieux-Fort North and the member for Mico North will see the benefits, and of course the fishermen and the fisher folks and the stakeholders will at least enjoy the benefit of this project. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that when we come here, do not open up the doors. Let's stay on the straight and narrow. Because all what they are saying to me, when you look at it, falls back straight at them. You all are the ones who increased the overdraft. You all did it. And now you're coming to criticize. You're coming to criticize us. Huh? Okay? So, Madam Speaker, I just want to say that I'm in support of this overdraft. And I think it's necessary that we do what we are doing here right now to get the resources to continue to develop this country. Because the records are there to show that whatever we are doing, the policies that we are implementing are bearing fruits. It's a bearing fruits. Unemployment has gone down. That's a fact. Yeah. Unemployment has gone down. That's a fact. You know, tourism arrivals has increased. That's a fact. You know, these are facts. Despite the fact that we decreased the facts. Despite the fact that we implemented the 5 to stay alive, we are seeing the benefits of all these programs that we are implementing. Now, when we go start the airport, and we go start spending on the roads, and we go start doing the hotels, you know, what will happen? And that's why you're crying. That's why you're crying. That's why you're crying, because you all see that the programs that we're implementing are working. So I want to compliment my Prime Minister, and I want to compliment every minister on this side for the work they have done over the 1.5 years. So I'm looking forward, Madam Speaker, to another year. Thank you very much.
Honorable Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Leader of Government Business.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I certainly want to, again, compliment all parliamentarians in their participation in this debate. And let us not be confused with the fact that the opposition is expected to put their best foot forward in debating the bill. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, we continue to see that we have to bring other things into the debate in order to give flesh or any meaning to and any substance to what the opposition is bringing up. The fact is we came to this House this morning, Madam Speaker, to approve, yes, a very simple thing, an overdraft bill. Every business, everybody strives to have an overdraft. You have no idea in terms of your cash flow how things are going to manifest. The Minister of Agriculture brought up a very important point. Once CDB gives us permission to be able to advance the monies, because we're outside of the hurricane season right now, we would like to commence the work as quickly as possible. An overdraft facility that allows you to put that money up front and then would be reimbursed. The most meaningful question that was asked today was asked by the honourable member from Dennery North, when he asked, what is the reason for this overdraft? Why are we here? We're here because we need to seek permission every 6 months to receive approval for an overdraft. An overdraft to carry the cash flow of government. The money is not being spent on any specific project. We have an allocation through a appropriations bill in which the House gave permission to this side to spend monies on specific projects. But sometimes the loan is late in coming ahead, sometimes that you don't have the cash flow that you were expecting with regards to the revenues that you were generating, and therefore you have to have a standby resource in order to plug that hole. And yes, sometimes it's to pay salaries, sometimes it's to pay electricity bills, sometimes it's to pay for other things. But the fact is, it is not money that is spent specifically in funding the budget. It is a resource, and you know that. And the fact is that the last approval that we received from the House came to an end on January of this year. And therefore, it would not be prudent on our part, if we have to use the overdraft, to use it illegally. And we don't want to be out of sync with Parliament. And we came to the House simply to renew the terms. I thought that the other side, in fact, would have been happy to hear that we've not increased the quantum of the overdraft, okay? And more importantly, that we're trying to find prudent ways to keep the interest rates of that overdraft down. Now, when I hear members on the other side going through the list of banks and questioning this bank and suggesting somehow that the money that you're borrowing is supposed to be funding projects, and to put it in that terms, I think that we need to be very careful as parliamentarians, in that we have a duty in order to be able to elucidate to the populace as to how government truly runs. Who uses an overdraft specifically for any project? So to suggest that the $37 million coming from the Bank of St. Lucia is monies that could have been used or are going to be used for something else. And you know that we are constricted by what we can spend our money by the appropriations bill. And you know that to be the truth. People have a complicated enough time understanding government when we would find ourselves to be so demeaning and that we're so interested in making political points that we would cause that level of misunderstanding to take place. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, I want to address very quickly some of the concerns that were brought up by the other side in this debate. The first one being Ojo Labs. Here again, we have an example of a project that's working. And the investments that the state have made are starting to bear significant fruit. In fact, Ojo just put out another announcement that they're hiring another 25 people. And speaking to the managers of the facility just last week, in fact, I want to say hello to all the young people that have gotten the jobs there and to congratulate them on the work that they're doing. And to, you know, I've been meeting with them to say that you're the ambassadors. You're the ones who have to work doubly hard to impress these individuals in order to create more job opportunities for our young St. Lucians. And let's not forget that the highest rate of unemployment that we have in this country, unfortunately, is with the youth. And while we've seen some improvement, and I want to make a difference between improvement and success. I don't believe that anybody on this side, for the slightest moment, is suggesting that we've reached success stage yet in our economic development program. What we're seeing is an improvement. We're seeing a significant improvement, but we're not close to delivering to St. Lucians, and particularly to the young people of this country, what we've promised them to do. But going back to Ojo Labs. So they're in the process of hiring another 25 people. My understanding is that there's a presentation that's going to be made to the parent company that, given the results that they've seen today, they might advance the employment significantly. And we're hoping to get the announcement in the next couple of weeks. But I'm going to say to you, Madam Speaker, if I may, a great example of how proud we should be of our young St. Lucians. The program that Ojo is based on was written by top computer engineers based out of Austin, Texas, some of the best in the world, who put this artificial intelligence program together. And they had a young St. Lucian who, with a high school degree only, who went there and studied the software program. And in this short period of time, taught himself about the program. And after doing that, recognized that there was amendments that he could have made to the program to improve the efficiency of the work by over 50%. And without asking any questions, went ahead and created that programming for the computer and was successful in achieving that. Now, what that says to us, Madam Speaker, is that in a class of 38 students, that there was an outlier of that kind of caliber in St. Lucia. And statistically, that augurs extremely well for the talent that we have. But it also again suggests one more time the need to address our curriculum in our schools. Because that is a great story. A similar story, which doesn't have as nice of an outcome, as I had the opportunity to meet with and have a dialogue with the young ladies who are participating in the Miss Independent pageant. And I have to tell you, I was so impressed with their articulation, their enthusiasm, and their looks as well. Yes, because I am, unlike what some people was trying to suggest on the other side, I do believe that St. Lucia has some very talented people and people that I really would like to see the best come out of. And in speaking to the young ladies, they had one of them that indicated how disturbed she was about the school system, in that it was not appealing to her, it wasn't keeping her attention. But more importantly, she lamented a young man in her class who was very technical driven, and particularly with computers. And the kid became so despondent with the curriculum that they were offering, he left school. And you could see it pained her that she knew that he was talented. But our system was not appealing to him. And so therefore, not everybody wants to go into tourism. Not everybody wants to be a vendor. Not everybody wants to be in agriculture. Not everybody wants to be a construction worker. And the key here on a small country is how can we offer young people a diverse opportunity in terms of advancing themselves. So Ojo Lab and saying that we're going to go after not just call centers, but added value, back of the house facilities, as well as passing the amendment to our IBC Act to allow for headquarter offices to take place in St. Lucia. I am proud that Pricewaterhouse and KPMG have just recently announced that they're coming back into St. Lucia. The Johnson's building for 4 or 5 years remained empty. I pass by now, you can't get rental space there. It's full. So to suggest that there are not signs that are showing that things are picking up is being delusional and is being dishonest. Now, you can say that things are not picking up to the pace you would like them to be, and you're not seeing the level of improvements to this pace that you want to. I can accept that. But to suggest for a moment that things are not picking up is not correct. Another company, KM2, have now agreed that they're going to expand their facilities. In fact, they're going into the Johnson's building, and they're looking to add 300 new jobs. 300 new jobs for young people. Now, I want to bring up a very sensitive discussion. I did an interview on a show in which I quoted that 40% or 43% of young people did not have more than a preschool education, okay? And it would have been easy for me to come out the following day to have corrected the statement. But I deliberately hesitated and allowed to see where the discussion was going to go. And the discussion continued down the line of not being concerned about the young people, not as to whether in fact I misquoted, whether in fact there's any resemblance of truth to that statement. Nobody is interested. So yes, I misspoke. It's not preschool. 43% of the young men in this country only have a primary school education. A primary school education. But I'm not happy. You know why I'm not happy? Because the fact remains that our education system has failed the young people of our country. That is the point of the statement. That is the point. Not whether Alan Shastney said it was preschool or primary school. As far as I'm concerned, both of them are equally bad. Both of them are equally bad. And that statistic is 43% for men and 40% for women. And worse yet, what? Only 33% of our students have a secondary degree education. And we're prepared to accept that. We're not going to see that there's a problem. We can't meet of minds. We're talking about pettiness. Politics. When are we going to put the young people of our country first? When are we going to understand that they are the future of our country? When will we put politics aside and put them first? So all I'm saying is companies like Ojo that you continue to criticize it. Instead, what are we doing? We supported the NICE program to put people into jobs that were going nowhere. Jobs in which people would have to get a contract every year. And guess what? In order to get that contract, you had to show that you were loyal to that political party. And even though that may not be true, the perception is that's the case. Because the process of hiring those people didn't go through the public service. You had a man in the Prime Minister's office that was making the determination by himself, Madam Speaker, by himself, as to who he should hire. And now that those jobs are no longer in education, no longer in agriculture, productivity hasn't been impacted that much. Yes, Am I sensitive to the plight of the principals who had their assistants? Yes. But the fact is that those jobs were recurrent expenditure jobs and were being put in the budget as capital expenditure. And who do you think we were fooling? Fooling ourselves. And you're spending all that money and not providing any level of training because you're the ones who had to find a job instead of creating the opportunity for the business community to be able to employ those young people. And for those to become permanent jobs in which young people would have ching-ching in their pocket. And the ching-ching that we've talked about in people's pocket is not the money or the largesse that government would give you. It's money that you would earn by yourself in order for you to make the determination as to where you want to spend the money. That you rely on your own skills to buy your home, to take care of your children. That is what this party believes in. This party believes that we need to build solutions to be great people, the people that they can be. But if we keep coming to this house and we keep maligning ourselves, we're not going to be successful. So, Madam Speaker, let me take St. Jude's. Let me take St. Jude's as an example. Okay? So you're telling me for 5 years the now opposition was in government. They marched. They marched. They marched. And you know what's interesting?
Honorable Prime Minister, just give me 1 minute. There is too much cross-talking.
Too much finger pointing.
Yes. There is too much cross-talking. The Prime Minister is on his feet and he will be heard in silence. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we have St. Jude's, in which the opposition marched when they were in opposition to claim that we were taking too long to open up the St. Jude's. And at that time, we were talking about 9 months to a year of recommencement of works. That they came in, and for 5 years, you know, Madam Speaker, the fact is that you can't hide the facts. Right? At the gates of St. Jude. I think that St. Peter was there.
Yes.
So you can't change what the facts are, Madam Speaker. Is it not a fact that the building was unfinished when they came in? Is it not a fact that the money was there in order to be able to finance the buildings? Okay? And what happened after 5 years? The amount of money went from $30 million to $40 million to $60 million. In fact, there are letters all over to say that finally that the hospital was going to open in August of 2016. Actually, sorry, not August, in July of 2016. And the member's right. We stopped the project just at the beginning of July because we realized that the project was not even close to being completed. Was not even close to being completed. Now, anybody who has any sense of common sense would say, let me see what your plans are. Let me see what your schedules are for construction. And when is it we realistically believe that this was going to be finished? There was no such plans. So in realizing there was no such plans, Cabinet felt it was prudent to be able to hire a consultant to come in. And who was a consultant? FDL. Who are they? St. Lucian Company. A St. Lucian company that has over 160 people employed. A St. Lucian company that CDB are concerned that if he was to get a heart attack, how much it would impact the workload of CDB because he is so good. So, but you see, that's too convenient. That's too nice of a story for the other side. It's better to say that FDL is affiliated to a member on this side because that's a much easier story to believe. But the same St. Lucian company, the same solutions that we want to be able to protect, but on the other side, okay, it's only when it's convenient to do so. It's not when it's reality. So all of a sudden now, you have a hospital in which the report says that there is $50 million of quantifiable expenditure. So based on the physical work on the ground and all the inventory of all the items on the containers. In fact, 2 containers just arrived yesterday or this last week that had been in Canada for 2 years, okay, on the docks. And the report shows that there's expenditures or disbursements of $118 million. That is why the government now has gone to the next step, because it doesn't want to be the person making these allegations without evidence. And so we've taken the precaution of now hiring Price Waterhouse, okay, to be able to do a financial audit to determine where did the $118 million go, okay? Meanwhile, we have made a commitment that we're going to build the best possible hospital we can in the South. And very soon, the government will make its pronouncements publicly, and in writing, as to what the timelines will be and what the solution is going to be. But we recognize, with the new airport coming, and with the state of having to continue to use the stadium, that this is an unacceptable position. But just to say that you're going to continue a flawed project for the sake of meeting your mandate, of which you had 5 years to achieve, which you didn't achieve, is not what's going to work on this side. This side is going to do the right thing for the people in the South. My colleague from from Laborie, used the term crowding out. I'm not even sure you know what the word crowding out really means. Because if you truly understood what crowding out was, that you would have recognized that that's exactly what the policies of your government were doing while you were in office. The increase in taxations was taking monies away from individual people and from small businesses and preventing them from being able to expand. The fact is that the banks were delinquent. We had the highest level of delinquency loans in the banks. And therefore, banks were not in a position to be able to lend any money. And therefore, government itself became the biggest borrower. But the problem with government is government had reached its prudent levels. It could no longer borrow any money. And we have to be careful. Banks make money by lending money. That's how banks make money. Okay? So the fact that the banks can borrow money from the state, $55 million in this particular case, means that they're making money on those loans. Because as you rightfully said, the banks are extremely flush with capitals. We are concerned because we have seen an increase in the amount of borrowing taking place in St. Lucia, which on the surface of it seems like a good thing. But the problem is it's still too much on consumable items. We've seen a huge increase in the amount of cars, secondhand cars that people are bringing in as an example, versus small businesses borrowing the money in order to be able to expand their business. And those are the things that we're working on as a government, to create the atmosphere to allow small businesses to be able to grow. And we've recognized that we need to improve the physical infrastructure, we need to improve the productivity of the civil service, and we must reduce the amount of debt that government has in order to create that confidence in our economy to be able to grow. CIP. It's amazing, Madam Speaker, those who live in glass houses want to throw the stones. So there was one person in this house, my member from Castries South, who wants and loves his DSH project. And he loves to bring in the CIP. And I'm at pains to explain to him, right, that the method that he was doing was very naive. Very naive. So let's go through it, Madam Speaker. So we have a situation in which, in our legislation, people can become an approved CIP project. We won't get into the details or skip over the facts that there were 4 companies that were approved prior to us coming into government that received CIP approval. That was in breach of the same rules that they had established, because none of them had any planning approval. But that's for another day, that's for another show. Okay? That's true. None of them had any planning approval. Not one of them had any planning approval. Not any one of them had any planning approval. None. 0. But that's okay. The next thing now, Madam Speaker, is that those companies, by being an approved CIP project, were allowed to go out and sell a real estate program. And the way the real estate program works, Madam Speaker, is the individual comes down and puts $300,000 into a business, a real estate development. And it's supposed to give them ownership in that business. Some people do it as an ownership, some people do it as shares in that business. And that they have to keep those shares or ownership for 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, they're allowed to sell their investment. They then pay the government $50,000 for administrative fees. So it means the government gets $50,000, the developer gets $300,000. It was agreed that we're going to set up an escrow account. And the $300,000 would go into this escrow account. And jointly between the CIP board as well as the developer, they would agree on how the drawdown of these monies are going to go. We have seen repeatedly there is no controls on that system. People question how much money is actually going into the cost of the development. We don't know. We have no control over that. All the money comes in and the money goes back out. All we've gotten is the $50,000. The developer gets the $300,000. When we came in, we said, we're not comfortable with that. We're asking ourselves, why should the state leverage its sovereignty in order to benefit an investor? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that we have is the investment. And there's been only one really good example, maybe a second, in the whole region in which projects under the real estate portion actually get completed. So when we came in, we said, you know what? We would rather do it where instead of selling the real estate portion at $300,000, we would allow developers to go out and get people to make the donation of the $100,000. Okay? They have to go and identify that person, they have to do the marketing, bring the person to the table, and that person gives us a letter that basically says they were referred by so-and-so, and they get tagged. And that money now, Madam Speaker, would then go into the investment in the form of a loan. And yes, 2%. 100,000 US. Okay? But it goes into the investment as a loan. And my members from Castries South said that. A loan. A loan is to be repaid. The collateral that we're using to protect the loan is that we have the first charge on the land and the building. So at the end of the day, we are still going to get the same hotel that we were going to get before. But the difference is the capital that we put in is now going to come back to the state, and that money can be used for something else. And that loan is still an asset to us. Now, if in fact the other side believes there's a better way to do it, I'm happy to listen. But I have no confidence in the real estate. It's not to say that we won't do it, because it was already legislated, and there are other destinations who are doing the same thing. But I prefer to have it the mechanism that we're doing. And if you notice so far, Madam Speaker, none of the projects have commenced selling the real estate portion. We've been trying to find mechanisms in order to make sure that the sovereignty of the state is protected. That is what we're attempting to do at every single moment. We talked about the DSH and what we're doing. DSH was leased the land for $1 an acre for 99 years. And that is not in order for them to go and borrow money. That is collateral that they're holding until we can use CIP funds, which we worked in the same mechanism, in order to purchase the horse racing track. We believe the horse racing track is a tremendous industry. We have the opportunity of going to see some of the bigger horse racing tracks around the world. In fact, we were recently at Gulfstream in Miami, and we're really hoping that there's going to be an agreement between Gulfstream and the DSH project. And we got to see the extent of the jobs that were being created. But even the people at Gulfstream had to admit that the horse racing track is difficult to make money, but all the periphery businesses around it are the ones that are making the money. So we want to be able to play our role only on the horse racing track. So the goal here is that they will hold the lease until we've made enough money from the CIP funds of individuals that they bring to the table. And then we'll be able to pay it back. And therefore, we will own the horse racing track. So the 300, 400 acres, that's actually 300 acres that you're talking about, belongs to the state. Why wouldn't we want that? And then we now give them a management contract, not that we pay, a management contract in terms that they lease the property from us in order to be able to operate it, because they're the ones with the expertise. And if I can do something, and if our side can do something to create jobs now for young people and young women to be in the equine industry, we want to do it. Because the intent here is to have horse races every single week. And yes, they probably were at that conference, because a big revenue stream for the horse racing track is online wagering. They brought in one of the top companies from Latin America. We went to see Gulfstream. All of their races are aired all around the world. We have continuously said that from the get-go, that one of the byproducts of having horse racing on a weekly basis is that every betting hole around the world that's legal, they'll be having races from St. Lucia. Why wouldn't we want to do that? And it's revenues from those wagering facilities that's going to help now pay for the operating cost of the horse racing track. In terms of Jufali, it's amazing to me that people that were so intimately involved with Jufali and that would have been so gung-ho on bringing Mr. Jufali here, who we have to say has been a dismal failure. There's not one project that we can point to that was successful. But investigations might find out as to who actually benefited. But time will tell as it comes to that matter. In terms of the loan, Madam Speaker, with regards to $150 million, the member from Castries South, again, is very correct. I've indicated repeatedly, our government does not want to engage in any borrowing that's considered to be new borrowing that does not have its own revenue stream. We came to this House, Madam Speaker. Unfortunately, the other members of the other side didn't understand the issue, again attempted to politicize it, and we put in the table that we're raising the taxes at the airport from $25 to $98. And that $35 of that $73 increase will be allocated to the airport. The fundamental difference between what we're doing and what IFC was recommending, IFC was recommending that we increase the tax from $35 to $60. And in fact, we saw that the cabinet actually approved and gave permission to the Minister of Transportation, not Transportation, of Infrastructure, to proceed to make that implementable when he wanted. And it was up to $55. And all we're arguing is that if the airport can be built for the $35, why would we pay the extra $20 or the extra $30 to a third party to operate the airport? And the argument on the other side is that you would do that and enter into a relationship in order that the debt wouldn't be on your books. And that what's going to happen, it's going to be a company who's getting all this money, and that when the company makes money, the company will then pay that money back to the state in the form of taxes. But meanwhile, they're holding your money. And that is money that we want to be able to use to build a highway between the north and the south. That is money that we want to use to be able to incentivize, to be able to build a cruise ship facility in Vieux Fort. And how does it help everybody? We met with Carnival and Royal Caribbean. Both of them are interested in doing home port facilities in St. Lucia. Is it pie in the sky? The fact is that Carnival is currently doing a home port facility in Barbados. And they have a partial home port facility already in St. Lucia. And with the advent of the new pier that we're proposing to build, we can see that we can increase the number of cruise ship passengers to St. Lucia, but more importantly, cruise ship passengers that will be coming through our airport and will be participating in both pre and post stays in St. Lucia. So it means that the economic impact of that kind of cruise ship passenger is significantly higher. And we're expecting at minimum 120,000 new passengers coming to St. Lucia. All of these things are to improve the amount of airlift we have coming into St. Lucia. If in fact, and when we have the DSH project start and be completed, if we don't build the highway between the north end of the island and the south end of the island, we're potentially going to marginalize our developments in the north. Because the south is going to be that good. And the same skyscrapers that the minister from Vieux Fort North has stood up and said that he refuses to accept. It's interesting to me that his when he was in government, his Ministry of Investment had plans for that same beach that he's talking about. In fact, both governments have had plans for that area. But for clarification, let us clarify some things. I have not seen one plan that proposes to connect a causeway to Marie Island. I have not seen one plan that includes building anything on Marie Island. Has never happened. So for the other side to continue standing up and down and believe that they've been successful in changing the government's position, that is just a fallacy. And that's dishonesty. That's intellectual dishonesty. We are all solutions on this side. We want what's best for solutions. And we're tired of seeing people suffer in the South. I think that I'm equally empowered to say that now that my constituency is in Micoud South. And when I meet my young people, that's what they want. Not only do they want jobs, but they want jobs in which they don't have to leave the South to go north. They're tired of hearing that that's where all the activity is. So I'm encouraged continuously by the feedback that I'm getting on the ground in my constituency, the feedback that I'm getting in Labrie, the feedback that I'm getting in Vieux Fort, the feedback that I'm getting in Choiseul by young people who want to see a change in St. Lucia. What's important with this is that the minister from Castries Southeast made a very valid point. The people have spoken. You didn't lose by 2,000 votes, gentlemen. You lost by 10,000 votes. That's the second highest margin in the history of politics in St. Lucia. And the quicker that you come to terms that your agenda is not in keeping with what the majority of solutions want, that's when we're going to get to a better place. And this side continues to welcome your participation in the development of our country in a mutually respectful way. And I open the door for a change in how we conduct our business. So the loan for the airport will be coming through, and the loan for the airport is financed by the airport tax. We went and we were transparent to the people of St. Lucia and said the road system is broken, that successive governments it's been difficult to allocate funds. When we were there, I think that we were doing about $10 million or $12 million a year. When you came in, it was down to $5 million a year. Okay? Yet, all the statistics show that we should be spending about $30 million a year in order just to maintain the existing roads. I'm not talking about building any new roads, to maintain them. We now have a crisis on our hand called climate change. We saw what has taken place in Dominica. We've seen what's taken place in St. Martin and Puerto Rico. We cannot find ourselves in that position. So what we did, we came to the public of St. Lucia and said we're going to put a $1.50 tax on the gasoline and we're going to put that into a lockbox. That money generates approximately $30 million a year. And that money is going to be the money that we're going to repay the $150 million that we're borrowing over a 15 to 20 year period of time. The terms of the loan have not been finalized, but the agreement to borrow the money has been made. I'm hoping that a mission is going to be going to Taiwan very soon in order to be able to finalize that prior to the commencement of the budget. So we will have that information for you when the budget comes. So Madam Speaker, I hope that I've been able to speak on most of the things that the opposition has brought up, but simply to say that this bill, this motion, is strictly an overdraft facility. This is not about increasing the amount of expenditure in the country. We came to the House because it has expired in January, and here we are in February, and we felt that this is the time we should come, even prior, because we could not wait for the budget in March. When we talk about the budget in March, I'm very excited that we've been able to fulfill our obligation in trying to move the budget so that we're approving the budget prior to the beginning of the quarter. And the goal is to continue to try to move the budget period as close to the end of January as possible so that ministries have that 2 months time where they know things are approved in order that we can go into the first quarter with the greatest amount of momentum. I just want to again say to my ministers how proud I am of the work that we've been achieving. The work has only just begun. We have a lot of things more to be able to do, and to reassure the public of St. Lucia that we are totally committed to their cause, that we are sensitive every day to the sacrifices that they are making, and particularly to the young people, that if you cannot rely on the Labour Party to fight for you, you can continue to rely on United Workers' Party to stand tall for you and make sure we deliver to you a new St. Lucia. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow by means of advances sums not exceeding $55 million from commercial banks for a period of 6 months from the date hereof, which sums shall be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund. I now put the question. As many are as of that opinion, say aye. As many are as of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the House do stand adjourned, sine die.
Honorable members, the question is that this House sitting do stand adjourned, sine die. I now put the question. As many are as of that opinion, say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This House to stand adjourned, sine die.
All right.
Well, we've just heard from the Prime Minister wrapping up today's debate in the lower house. Today's debate was the only motion tabled by the Prime Minister, the Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and the Public Serving, seeking parliamentary approval to borrow by means of advances sums not exceeding $55 million from commercial banks to be paid out of the consolidated fund. On Thursday, February 15th, the National Television Network will be here again for the live sitting of the Senate or the Upper House. And of course, we look forward to bringing you the sitting on Thursday, adding the voices to today's debate who are Honorable Ezekiel Joseph, Honorable Guy Joseph, Honorable Dominic Fede, Honorable Ernest Hilaire, Honorable Moses Baptiste, Honorable Short Edward, and Honorable Oliver Baptiste. Well, it was a pleasure bringing you the live coverage of today's sitting of the lower house. And on Thursday, we ask that you will join us for another live broadcast, at this time, of the Senate. On behalf of the Government Information Service and the National Television Network and the technicians, I'm Julita Peter, thanking you for watching.